nowadays.
Sometimes useful, but most of the time it is more pain.
Yeah, it's like with you,
All of it.
they're not even that different, like from phone to phone now. Oh, there you go.
You are a live chat?
We are live. Okay. I call this hearing of the Archaeological Review Committee of 23 May 2024 to order. And we have the roll call, please.
Chair Eck,
Present.
Member Pierce,
Present.
Member Tree,
Present.
Member Wands,
Excuse.
Member Bechtel. Here. Chair, you have the floor.
Thank you. First thing on our agenda is approval of said agenda. Anything to change to that, Scott?
No, Chair.
Thank you. Any members?
Okay.
I move we approve the agenda for the meeting of May 23rd. Second. Moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Hearing no opposition, motion passes. Next is approval of minutes of 25 April 2024, which we have in front of us. Staff, anything to say about these?
No, Chair.
Committee members? Member Becker?
No comment.
Member Tree?
I'm happy.
With minutes. Member Beard? Yeah, I do have one correction on page 4 of the minutes. Second paragraph. Second and third sentence. Which reads, the last paragraph talked about LA 102573 MH. There, I don't know what the MH is there, but means not to mean anything. Which is now accurately plotted. And then the next sentence, he encouraged Mr. Winter to get the actual site, and I would insert the word form, site form. That's all I have. Thank you. I heard him say form, so it's gotta be that. I have nothing to add. I'm gonna craft a motion. Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the minutes of the meeting of April 25th, 2024 with the correction.
I second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Those opposed? Hearing no opposition, motion passes. Matters from the floor. One person representing the floor. Hearing no matters from the floor, we'll move on to old business. There is no old business, so I can see. Therefore, new business, case number 2024-8332. Ron Winters, agent for Daniel Stormwater, applicant requests approval for an archaeological monitoring report for the installation of 85 feet subsurface water utility line at 225 East Marcy Street in the historic County Review District. Thank you for your staff report, Paul. Anything to add to that?
No, Chair.
Mr. Winters, you'll have to be sworn in.
All right, please raise your right hand. State your name and address for the record.
Ron Winters, 109 Calle Paula, Santa Fe, New Mexico, 87505.
Do you solemnly declare and affirm that the testimony you have in records of this item shall be the truth and nothing but the truth, and do this under the penalties of perjury?
I do.
Mr. Winters has been sworn in, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Ron, you have the floor. What else do we need to know?
Well, a few things, actually. First, I have to give you an apology because after I submitted this, and saved as a PDF, I was going through and saw that my degree symbol turned into squares again, and I need to find out why that is and correct that. And also, some of the, the locational maps were not as clear as they should be. So that's something in the reduction, of the file. It was a big file, but something went haywire. But and I saw it only after the fact. But I'll take care of that.
Are you using the pro version or the cheap version?
I have You mean my,
for PDF creation?
that's a good question. I use a map for one thing. Yeah, but so the pro version would not do that?
In theory, there's a setting you can toggle to fix that. but
Okay.
Who knows?
No, I'll investigate that. I won't let it happen again. The other thing is, this was an interesting project in the way it got started, and, Daniel Strongwater, my client, is here and came before you last year about the project. Paul is very involved in it, and, as was Stephen Gilbert from the Water Division. And unfortunately, all I received it from them were the artifacts. I was hoping for and asking for some kind of notes, field notes or profile of what they had done, and never received that. So I apologize for that. You know, I tried to cover what I saw, you know, in depth. So if you're looking for something in terms of, I mean, all I knew was the distance and what they recovered, and those artifacts were included, you know, in the total, and including the frontal remains, and considered as one assemblage. Lastly is my recommendation as a significant site. And a couple reasons, you know, I think I have to look, the numbers, you know, why, you know, it had to do with who lived there prior, and the information that could still be gained, you know, from that. I think that, you know, I've done a lot of monitoring projects, and I have not seen this kind of assemblage. Part of it obviously has to do with the fact that I screened all the vectors that had been done prior to me being there to monitor the trenching, the last 25 feet of trenching. Now, of course, I found artifacts there also, but not in the number of screening that it does. And so it's a good example of what we miss, even when you're diligent. And, you know, I mean, every bucket of dirt that comes out, I'm watching as you dump it and spread it. And, I was interested in, you know, I was surprised and pleased to see so much, you know, in terms of the lithics and the ceramics, and actually more the lack of historic. One other comment was that the trench was heavily disturbed because of the existing line that ran, you know, through the trench. And then a theory, and when I say there's, you know, possible, you know, research still available, is this the result of the occupation, you know, Port Marcial, you know, and this being really at the toe of the slope. Again, when you discount, you know, the Paseo and the houses and stuff, I mean, it is right there. And I really had a feeling that that's, you know, was a result of, you know, the number of lithics, the number of ceramics that I was finding in a not a very big area. So I'd love to hear you guys' take on that also. So, okay, I'll shut up.
All right, thank you. Committee members. Member trees.
I'm curious, you know, your map shows that was part of the swamp at one point, and I'm wondering how, you know, in your history of it, it was, is it possible that some of that material could have been dumped to make it not a swamp?
You mean the Cienega? Yeah, I didn't find any soils. I've worked closer on Cienega actually, and I've seen soils that are absolutely, you know, part of that. I did not experience that in this area. The soils weren't what I had encountered before when I was new. I was in that area. But I mean, I didn't rule out anything, but it was interesting. And I attribute it more to its proximity to Fort Mercy Hill and the occupation there. And I've done a project up there too, when they did the interpretive signage. I monitored all the excavation for that and did find human remains at one point up there. Anyway, no, I didn't, all that to say, no, I didn't.
So do you think that, you were like on the edge of something because, as you said, the next 2.5 feet didn't quite have the same kind of density?
Yeah, but if remember, I said the northern extent, it seemed like, yeah, that's where the bulk of the artifacts, they were all in the same stratum, but, there were more, the counts were higher, northern end.
Thanks.
I would think the northern half of the site is, it seems like the.
Sir, you haven't been sworn in.
Okay.
You'll have to, wait until the.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Please raise your right hand. State your name and address for the record.
Daniel Strongwater, 806 Columbia Star Ave, anything next to it.
Do you solemnly declare and affirm that the testimony you have in reference to this item shall be the truth and nothing but the truth, and do this under the penalties of perjury?
I do.
Applicant is sworn in.
Now you have the floor.
My understanding of the way the site has been developed is that the back half of the site had been paved over at some point in the early 80s. And probably had not been disturbed nearly as much as the front and the side yard might have been, as a result of utilities and that kind of thing. So it is a water line or a sewer line that runs down Castillo behind the building. But it wouldn't have entered, it's on the other side of the building. So this eastern side where Ron was screening, and to the north would have been relatively protected since at least the early 80s. But I would think a lot longer than that.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Anything else?
Nope. Okay.
Member Pierce. Yeah, well, it seems like there's a little more project history to this than what appears in the report, or maybe we all knew about this once and I've forgotten, but
How it evolved?
yeah, how it evolved, when you came on board, and again, Gilbert, it reads like it's another run-of-the-mill monitor, like you were there from day one, but I gather that's not the case.
No, I mean, I think you see on the first day where, I was called by Daniel, who I'd not known before, because the project was red tag. Because they didn't have a permit or archaeological clearance to do. Daniel thought he was all set with the permits, but it come to find out, when they inspected, that was not the case.
Okay, that explains a lot. I must have just missed that.
Yeah, no, that's in the very beginning when I.
Yeah, the questions I had, like myself, was a monitoring plan that was submitted, obviously, it wasn't.
No,
And,
no.
it was a construction permit issue. I gathered that neither,
Well,
you had the permit, but weren't asked to do.
no, he did have to do archaeology. He was, well, you can.
Yeah, I mean, essentially what happened is that we applied for historic approval of our hot box. And I'm not exactly sure how this fell through the cracks, but what happened was that it did not trigger a larger review of what the requisite trench associated with the hot box would be. And so we received administrative approval for our hot box in discussions with historic staff. And we received a water division permit as well as a building permit to do all of this work. And somehow in all three of those processes, nobody flagged that there was a trench associated with the sprinkler system entering a building where it was drawn, where it was annotated with the length of trench. And so I believe that there has been some revision in the water division's process I'm not sure, and maybe you all can speak to if there's been any revisions in the historic divisions process, but that's what had transpired, and so my understanding was that we had every clearance that existed and that we had followed the processes listed on the website and all that. It wasn't an interim period when Carly was on leave, and there's a lot of things happening in the historic division. And we had nearly finished the project with the oversight of Stephen Gilbert, who often works with the contractors that we had hired to do the trench. At which point Paul saw the project happening and learned that we were not following a whole bunch of rules that we didn't know about.
Understood, thank you.
Yeah, you better jump in.
You anticipated my comment very well, which is you used the word fell through the cracks, right? This fell through the cracks between the various divisions of the city, again.
Well,
We
there's,
can't seem to have a.
there's
meeting
more
without
to it than that.
Right, Chair, I remember, Pierce, so the box itself is a water division installation project. So he had to get permit through the water division and staff put the box in. They weren't there to monitor the private owner's trench from the house to the box, because that falls on the private landowner. And so that was not reviewed. And given that there was some staff and the whole administrative approval for the project as well as staff turnaround, it's another project that went through that way.
Another-
Right. and
Another
it's-
issue was the distance. Daniel thinking that they were two separate projects, but they were in fact one and the same, so then it exceeded the 60 feet.
That's the question.
It was 85 feet.
Yeah.
And
There was quite a bit of back and forth as well between, in the whole thing. There was quite a bit of back and forth between the water division and historic about the hot box location, because we had exceeded the distance from the, historic did not want the hot box at the street. They wanted it behind the streetscape of the facade of the building. And all of the buildings that are marked here set back quite far from the street, which is what makes it so lovely. They had received an exception from the water division for a distance from the main water main to the hot box, which they do not like to have long because it increases the opportunity for backflow into the city water, or something to that effect. So we had even received an exception from them to push this hot box further, and so it really had gone the rounds. And I really hope that this kind of thing does not happen to anybody else. It was an extremely expensive, stressful, terrible situation to go through, and any way that there is any way possible to improve these processes so this kind of thing does not happen to other people, I highly recommend doing what that is.
Well, yeah, I share that feeling. And I'm not gonna belabor trying to figure out which division of the city failed to talk to another. To us, this independent committee, it's all just the city, and once again, they fell a little flat, so. Yeah, that's all. That's good for me, thank you.
Chair,
Sure, good. So, we're working with other departments right now to straighten out those issues right now, because like what happened there is that the water approved it, but we were notified on the length and all that stuff. So right now we're working on the project. Any project that's gonna come within the downtown area, it's gonna be coming to historic and North Carolina.
I would have to say, even though it was maybe a headache for Daniel, the amount of history that we were able to provide on that property and, you know, what lies beneath, I think was of great interest and education to us all.
It is a real pleasure to see the report that had so much more information about who lived there and what was happening in the building that was not uncovered in our historic review, because it was already a designated building. And it was documented as contributing and all that kind of thing in the late 80s. So there's a lot of history that was uncovered in this report that would not have been uncovered in the conventional historic review process where a building's already designated, facade designated.
And, yeah, I agree. And, you know, I agree with Ron's assessment that this is a significant site, and now we know nothing about it because we were able to catch it before it was all over and done, and there was no opportunity to record it. But that at least is good. But anyway, that's all I have, thank you.
Okay.
Rebecca?
I have just a stupid question. On the abstract form, it doesn't have a page number. In the environmental setting, is that the environmental setting of Santa Fe in general? Like the Milwaukee Rock Broken Land Complex?
Well, I'm very specific at one point about the soils right there, but then it's surrounding the surrounding area. Yeah, I mean, it's
So it's boilerplate. fine.
yeah, I mean, it's the same with the cultural, background. I mean, that is not specific to that street, that area. I mean,
But it's specific
In
to-
general,
In
yeah,
general,
yeah.
okay, that's what I thought
Yeah.
also. And then, I think the next comment, like Tom, I had a question about, wouldn't it have been nice to have seen some kind of diagram showing the toe of the slope of Fort Marcy and the marsh and just sort of more general topographic features, since it does play into what you think you found there? That in that neighborhood, description where you talk about, well, this road happened and then this road happened, and I was looking, like, I was getting my phone out to like, oh, where's that road? And it would just would have been nice to show, I don't know, the Sanborn maps or something that might show some of those roads that stopped and were redone, and that, is in the description, in words, and maybe that all came from Beverly, and Corinne project.
Yeah.
But just to see the diagrams of that, the historic neighborhood, since it became such an important part of the argument. And then, I think,
Can I say
yeah,
something?
go ahead.
Yeah, what Sanborns were very specific, for what their purpose was.
I'm not suggesting it had to be Sanborn. just-
No, but
just some other kind of
yeah,
diagram.
and I don't know, I mean, certainly aerials wouldn't, help, I mean, as far back as they go. It would have to be, I don't, maybe historic maps.
Right, maybe, yeah, I don't know.
Geofence, maybe? something like that.
Yeah, to show,
There's a 35 aerial that's available, I think, from the soil conservation.
yeah.
I don't know, yeah, I don't know what.
No, that's a good point.
It's something to show the sort of more topographic, geographical context. I was wishing for that, which is, then it becomes a comment. Like, where's that? And then on page 54, under the summary recommendations, it says it's recommended that significant, comma, contributing, comma, and eligible. Are those three different?
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Significant
I know,
because of
but
the
our-
way the Santa Fe ordinance is written.
Right,
Contributing because it's in historic district.
And eligible for the national.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, same.
Eligibility is specific to this postage stamp thing.
Right, so it's the same as architecture. It's building. Significant.
Eligibility, yeah.
Eligible,
Yeah,
Okay,
it's not the same idea.
okay, all right.
But- Significant is you need to, our code at the time, or the state doesn't really use say you're, you significant.
It's the city uses the
Yeah.
May I clarify from a building owner perspective, does that mean we already are significant, we already are contributing, and we are not nationally registered, and we would be eligible with a report like this to get on the national register or something to that effect?
Ron is recommending the archaeological site as eligible for consideration.
I see.
In practice, very few people ever proceed to actually getting the property listed because it's time consuming, expensive. And
Uh-huh.
the eligibility alone, if there's any federal project or money that comes at it, would provide the little roadblock, hey, wait a minute, we have to consider this before proceeding. But it doesn't stop you from doing anything, but it just could put another step in the process.
Sure.
It's a general statement recognizing that this place has information potential.
Yeah.
That could be make a significant contribution to our understanding of prehistory or history. That's, that's in a nutshell.
And as you, the committee knows, I don't take that lightly. I mean, I see,
Mhm.
I assign site numbers to, assemblages, but this I thought was, deserved that kind of recommendation.
Okay.
That's it for me.
Okay. Time for the nitpicker. Starting in the abstract, description of the project. 1, 2, 3, fourth paragraph. The project began at the northeast corner of the building. As far as I can tell, it starts in the middle of the east side of the building. But I can't really say because the illustration may not show me everything I need to know about where everything is on the property. So if it does indeed start on the northeast corner of the building, it seems like there would be another 60 feet of,
So east central would be more appropriate.
well, say, on the east side. You're making a general description.
Yeah,
And you're not nailing it down, you're kind of relying on the plat or the plan or whatever we call this thing that shows the line as the definitive detail. It's just the description misses the mark because it's one quadrant away from where it seems to start.
kind of.
You did a pretty good job of manipulating your tense, but in the very next paragraph, which is paragraph 5, the second sentence slips back into a sort of what if, a la a plan mode. Any cultural resources exposed were documented within the trench. Strike the that are, because that implies it hasn't happened yet. So that same stuff occurs on page 6, which is your introduction, which is a close repeat of the same text. But in this case, paragraph 4 is where that tense shift happens. Both sentences are implying that it hasn't happened yet. As the trench is excavated? No, that's a method statement for something you're going to do. As the trench was excavated, as in the abstract, makes it clear. Same that are in the next sentence should be split because it already happened. Thank you for pointing out that you were hoping for information from the personnel previously on site, because I have this great big question mark, which were their findings. Can we lean on the water division to say none of this flies without your findings? Because you were there, you did something, thou shalt report it, period.
Chirek, I believe whatever was recovered from Stephen Gilbert was given to Rick Montoya, so then OAS has them. So I would have to contact OAS to recover those artifacts.
No,
He's got them.
I got the artifact. I didn't get any
At this
paper.
point, the artifacts are removed. What are the findings? What are your observations? What were your activities? What day did you show up? Who did you talk to? What did you see? What did you observe in the trench? We're missing a vast part of it. And it's not Ron's fault.
Chirek, I'll be in
I can name
touch.
a couple of people who need to provide some information.
Chirek, I'll be in touch with Stephen Gilbert and get that information for Ron.
All right. Page 42. Last paragraph on the page. Comparing this paragraph to the site form, I start to get confused. Are you defining one component of this site as consisting entirely of fauna? And a second component consisting entirely of Pueblo ceramics? Or are you using component in this case in a very generic way?
Generic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Please change that so that it is clear what you're talking about, because the component discussion, which needs to also be clarified, should attribute the artifacts that are associated with that occupation to an occupation. So it's much less specific than it should be. Page 43, very first line. Stratum
Ooh. How did I miss that?
UM.
How did I miss that?
Sorry about that, but.
No, I've gotten
Latin,
good about.
once it finds itself into your brain, never leaves. Thank you,
I've got-
Sister Lorraine.
I've gotten pretty good at that, finding those, eliminating.
Pages 51 and 52,
Mhm.
the illustrations of profile. These are the profiles of what you saw when you were there. In no case is there any indication on either of these that I can find that says where the artifact came from. Which stratum.
Well, that would be hard to decide or discern because this was all done.
While you were monitoring, what observations did you make that would inform as to which stratum they come from?
Oh, you mean, this short section that I did monitor? Yeah, because this was already, I don't know where the artifacts, I assumed that they were from stratum B. But because all of that dirt, I screened, it was all from where these profiles, figure 13, where that was all excavated.
Right.
Yeah,
And you screened that dirt.
yeah,
But figure 14 represents the profile of the trench you actually observed.
yeah. So I see what you're saying, yeah.
You need to speak to where the artifacts came from. What is their context? Because as it is, we see no physical space within which to drop that assemblage.
Right.
Page 71. Now, I realize this is a contribution from Mr. Murphy, and bless him for the details he comes up with. I want to figure out how he does this when nobody else seems to
I don't know.
access to.
He's got sources, I guess, that he's keeping close to, just because,
Or he has a
Well, he-
photographic memory.
well, that's the other thing. He knows the city, architectural history better than anybody I have encountered.
But on page 71,
Okay.
first line about the Ted C. Luna era of the house
Mm-hmm.
drops the letter S from the previous owner's name. And since this committee is very familiar with a person whose last name is Barrow, we know he never lived there or owned that property, so the Barrows should be the people reference.
I'll chastise the sound.
Site form, yeah, the second page, the same thing about the stratum.
Okay.
There's no specification of which of the observed strata is the stratum in question. So that needs to be on the site form.
Got it.
Way back in section 12 on the site form, same thing, narrative description. Should be specified. And then back to those profiles again. Just reading what you had to say and looking at the profiles, I would have bet you Starbucks coffee that the artifact came from stratum A. The stratum B has a lot of the descriptive characteristics of what your profiles frequently indicate are pre-occupation. funds.
Mm-hmm.
But your gut reaction was it was stratum B, which implies that we don't know. So if you can specify.
Okay,
And then the other thing I have to harp about is, again, not your fault because you inherited this. Baseball night. When something falls through the cracks, it seemed entirely appropriate that the city devote time, energy, effort, and resources to documenting the sequence of events. A one-page timeline. Date. City staff in the form of Mr. or Ms. So-and-so said X, Y, or Z to the applicant. Discussions followed on date whatever involving whoever, and something was decided or not decided or resolved or not resolved.
If I may, Chair, if I may, from memory, I can say that Mr. Strongwater came in and he submitted for his administrative approval. And then he went to the other city agency, and when the actual work was to be done, the line was moved. And so when we went to do our final work is when we noticed the distance had changed. And that's when Paul put it into you. So,
And that's something that
So-
should be on a timeline, so
Yes,
that
sir.
it's clear. Because none of us were there.
right,
So if we knew, for
Right.
instance, that there was an administrative approval issued in year X, which I'm starting to think was
So-
a few years.
so it would
back.
be a historic administrative approval, and it didn't kick it into the archaeology needed because it lacked the length.
But
Chirek, Daniel, I sent you an administrative approval for the emergency archaeological monitor.
Yeah,
Then Ron Winters had that.
I think maybe what you're talking about, I'm not clear, I was gonna just look it up, but, I had been working with, your colleague, what's his name?
Stephen Gilbert,
No, in historic, who's the other?
Ramon Sarason.
Yeah, Ramon.
Okay.
Ramon came and we did a site visit. We looked at, because there was a lot of back and forth about where the hot box would be. And I'm not clear, I don't know if that's what you're talking about, but yeah, I had received administrative approval at that point. What I'm not remembering right is whether, what the length of I do not recall discussing the trench in any kind of depth with Ramon. And I think that might be where the issue happened. It was definitely very clearly drawn on all the sprinkler plans that were submitted to the water division and called out with a link on it. It was not even on my radar about this 60-foot limit though. That was not even a goal of mine. It had nothing, it didn't factor into anything that I was viewing. I didn't even know that rule existed.
So when we would see that on a historical plan, we would then, when we would see it, then
Yes.
that's when we would let
Right.
the archaeology
And-
team know. So,
I think that.
so I do believe from recollection that distance changed from our initial administrative approval to, when they went out to the site for, final inspection, and which caused it to come to this board.
So it changed from something less than 60 feet to something more.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
So Chirek, when Gary and I went out there, because Heather told us about this trench. When Gary and I walked on site, Mr. Strongwater said, I'm only digging 59 feet. And when he said 59 feet, I knew right away, okay, I know exactly what's going on here. Stop all work immediately. Because I didn't know what had previously taken place. But at that point, stop all work. We need to get this going because there's something not right here. Once we talked to Daniel, we talked with staff. You need an archaeologist. We can administer emergency administrative approval for an archaeologist. So you don't have to come back for a plan. You have an open trench. Just get it monitored, but you have to screen all the film, document all the profiles. and then we can move forward. So,
I think I noted that in that first day when I tried to recreate through emails, between everyone in that meeting that was held, as to how things transpired.
And I realize I'm asking for something that might be a pain in the rear to do, but one page attached to that said, here's how it all went down would really help.
Absolutely, Chair.
yes,
If
and
nothing else, it would have stopped me from wasting my time last night going through previous meetings, trying to find a longer plan.
right,
So, yeah,
It was just mentioned to us during one of our meetings as
Yes.
having been caught. And we were assured that Ron was on it and we would hear all about it later. And that was.
and the building about it again is that fire suppression is considered fire suppression, all that stuff. And the water division didn't know that all this other stuff that happened within the storage. So now, like I said earlier, the fire department, the fire marshal knows about it. Anything going into the downtown area, anywhere else, they're gonna look at it closely and they're gonna contact us before they do anything else. And I kind of do remember it was like 42 feet or something like that to the box and then a little bit more. So it's kind of like went out there and measured, and the point where it was straight and then into the building, that part was not included in the measurements as well. So
Lots of things went through the cracks.
that will make sure that there's a memo for you to review prior to, in the packet. That way it's just easier for you to understand the project.
You're perfectly fine just briefing us, but when the thing comes to us, that's when all the stuff should be.
Got it.
And I realize I'm being a pain, but
No,
it just.
I would like to
Not
make
at all,
one
Chair.
more comment about how this all transpired, because, I do take some issue with the narrative that was presented. I think that, at no point was there any malice or negligence or anything on my behalf. I followed every rule that I was furnished by the city. I just looked up the plan that I submitted. There was no request from Ramon or anybody. The plan did not show the water line at all. They just showed the hot box. There's our site plan. I circled the hot box on our site plan. That was the only drawing that was furnished for our historic administrative approval. So, I think that this is, I've really been dragged through this personally in the projects I've done, which is fewer than 10 projects here in town, and they seem to get harder and harder and harder. I just want to get it on the record that, I really feel as a contractor in town, as a developer in town, that it's really reached a near impossible level of difficulty to proceed through. And in this process, I did not feel as though I was given any kind of goodwill or support to finish the project in a timely, expeditious, financially appropriate way from the city staff as I passed through this administrative approval. I received over a week's wait in response time on emails with my drafted plan. I received all kinds of nitpicky edits when, I could not believe how expensive underground work was. I don't know if you're all familiar, it's by far the most expensive per day work that I did on this entire project. This is a gut renovation. We built a new brick patio. We did all kinds of work on this building. Underground work was by far per diem the most expensive work. We were stopped in the middle with 10 feet left to dig in our trench. And we had a 2-week waiting period to navigate just getting Ron on site. Ron, bless his heart, was ready to be there the next day when we were red tagged. And it took over 2 weeks of administrative back and forth with a plan that was provided to the city near immediately, within 12 hours of finding out about this red tag or finding out about what information they wanted to see. I was at home, right on my computer, writing a plan, trying to dot every I and cross every T that I was made aware of. And there was no goodwill shown on behalf of the city. It really required a sort of what would seem to me to be like an egregious amount of effort and phone calls, sitting here in person. There was a period of time, where I sat waiting for Paul to talk to me, and I had to ask, this was when the office was closed. I sat out there for over 2 hours waiting to talk to Paul to try and get approval to continue with our project with Ron's support. And so, I do not feel that this was that there's a certain amount of things that went wrong that are falling through the cracks. I feel like, from my personal experience, this crossed over into a sort of, I was made to believe that I was trying to pull the wool over the eyes of the city, and there was an indeterminate period of waiting. I was not told, you will have approval on this date, you can tell your contractor, go away for 4 days and come back. It was an indeterminate waiting period. It was unclear. There was not a clear request of what I needed to furnish to move forward. And that is the thing that I really take issue with. Obviously, you can see I'm here, I'm really invested in the project. I really care about the building's history. I care about this kind of stuff. I've continued to work on historic buildings. But I really want to make it clear that what transpired was unacceptable, in my personal view. And I just want to make sure that's stated clearly.
I thank you for your comments, and just so that you know, none of us are saying that you did anything wrong.
Nor is
We're
staff.
just trying to figure out how to keep the darn train on the track.
Yes, I do. I get emotional about it because it is so frustrating. This has been continuing to happen to me, on all these little things that, so I apologize if there's any.
Daniel, I have to,
forward
I have to speak on behalf of city staff that it could have been a lot more cumbersome had you had to me write a monitoring plan, submit it, get it approved. I mean, when you say that you didn't feel like you got any help, I think Paul was great and gave great assistance in that. It may not have happened. I know you were the deadline for them to open the restroom, but you had no idea what it could have been like.
That is certainly true. I'm not
No.
familiar with this process in any
No.
way. But I will say that I did not feel that, the hurt, it was made clear to me that there would be an administrative path. And from the moment that administrative path was presented, the period of time that it required to get there felt, unfair in my experience. So that's really what I'm referring to. But I do very much appreciate the staff, city staff working with me to get administrative approval and to move all this forward in that way. And I now understand how cumbersome it can be to begin a process like this.
Sure, just a response to what he's saying, that this is not the only thing we do. We do other stuff, we do other cases with age board and all that stuff, we have a minister approval. This archaeological is not the only thing Paul does. That's not the only thing we do. We're backed up, we're short staffed. At that time, we have new employees that came in. So we had to educate everybody. So that's the reason why we're taking it step by step and we're following code. That's what we're doing. Make sure the code's correct, make sure you're following code. We never said that we did wrong or anything like that. We're just trying to get to the process of getting this thing continued. And as fast as we can do it, but we're all backed up. You know, it's a lot of work. It's not just archaeological that we do. We do other stuff right there. You know, we'll have meetings that goes on. So my staff, we're busting butt. So.
Mr. Chair, yeah, I know this is probably more appropriate for item G, but it does seem to me that, as we're considering the right to the code, that having a standard monitoring plan would have saved a considerable amount of heartache and this.
Indeed.
Right? You could have just said, okay, this is your plan, go to work.
You took the words out of my mouth. Thank you. Sir.
There is one correction that I didn't, I mean, when I read through the plan, I said, oh, yeah. Your picture caption, and maybe it's not even your caption, but it says Jose's Casa de Camino.
That's
And as a fond patron of Josie's. I mean, if you ever find the apple pie recipe, That is a historic record.
And it's worth its weight in gold.
No more.
This, was probably taken, I know it was taken from the, archives.
Yeah,
Yeah, so it would, yeah.
not you,
No.
but maybe you could make a correction there somewhere.
I'm glad you saw that. I completely missed it. Just. Yeah.
Yes, I was a bog patron at, God, I love that place. Both this one and the one over closer to the, just down the street here.
If we find somebody who can make that apple pie.
Oh, call me, God.
We're gonna go.
Yeah. You do?
No, I
No.
want to.
Yeah, oh, you want to do.
Okay, having discussed all that, I think we're done. And understand, I'm not saying he has to fix all this and bring it back to us. He can fix all of it, hand it to Paul, and God bless.
Thanks.
Is my suggestion. So now, does someone want to correct?
Sure, Mr. Chair, I move that in case, 8332, archaeological monitoring report for 225 East Market Street, we accept the report with the requested correction.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
I,
Aye. All opposed? Hearing no opposition, motion carried.
Thank you, everyone.
And thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Thank you, Danny. Thank you, guys.
sorry, Daniel.
Hang in there.
If no, you're better. Thank you.
Have a great
Yeah.
night, sir.
Thank you.
See you next time.
Case number 20248333. Heather Seltzer Rogers, agent for Public Service Company of New Mexico, PNM, applicant, requests approval for an archaeological monitoring plan for the installation of 1,150 feet of subsurface electrical utility lines at 1698 Galisteo Street in the River and Trail and Suburban Archaeological Review Districts. Thank you for the staff report, Paul. Anything to add?
No, Chair.
Is it Dr. Seltzer Rogers online? And
Heather,
Yeah.
can you hear?
Can you hear me?
The volume on your computer.
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Oh, God.
Yeah, sorry, Heather. Oh, there you are. Yeah, we can hear you.
You can hear me?
Yes, we're good.
Okay.
Please be sworn in.
Okay,
Okay.
not sure if they need to be on camera or not.
Can you turn on your camera?
How do I do that? Is there, I don't see that option. I think you have to like promote me or something. I can't do anything on my end right now.
Okay, please raise your right hand.
I am, if that helps.
Heather?
Yeah,
Please be sworn in.
Okay, state your name and address for the record.
Heather Seltzer Rogers, 10505 Hackamore Place, Southwest, Albuquerque, New Mexico, 87121.
Do you solemnly declare and affirm that the testimony you have in reference to this item shall be the truth and nothing but the truth, and do this under the penalties of perjury?
I do.
You're sworn in. Thank you, Heather. Please be patient with us for a little bit. We still have an alarming. All right, Heather, wait for 10 seconds before you respond, because we can't get rid of the feedback loop. Do you have anything to say in addition to what you've presented us?
No, I do not.
Committee,
No comment.
thank you, Member Bechtel. Member Pierce,
No comment that's worth the loop, so.
Member Trees,
No, nothing to add or ask.
all right, Heather, the echoes have died down. I have 3 things flagged, so let me take them one at a time. And again, wait a full 10 seconds before you respond so that we can eliminate some of the double talk. First, on page 1, last line of paragraph 1. No new right-of-way will be acquired. Does that statement imply that PNM already possesses this right-of-way?
I don't think so, so no, I can take that out.
Well, thank you, Heather, but if they don't have the right of way, I do not understand how they could install anything, whether it's in the sky, on the surface, or under the ground. It's not their property.
Then I imagine that they do already have the easement for that part that's going through the road.
And I'm sorry, the feedback loop bit us.
Heather, can you call my cell phone?
Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. Heather?
Yeah.
Great, one moment, please.
Leave PNM.
ahead, Chair.
All right, Heather, we're gonna try one more time.
Okay, is there less than echo?
Yeah, you think they have the right of way?
Yeah.
This is asking a lot, but do you think you know how wide the right of way is?
Only a little part goes through the road. I can ask and find out. I'm not sure I understand the question, honestly.
Excuse me, only a little part goes through the what?
I'm looking at the plans right now, and only a little bit goes through the road. Most of it's on that private land parcel.
It's actually the private land parcel that I'm worried about,
Okay.
because if it's private land, they need a right of way. So if they have a right of way across that land, that's an important component of understanding how this is going to be done. And it is critical to the implementation of your stated goal to survey the right of way, if it exists, and a 50-foot buffer on either side of said right of way. So if they have a right of way, you're gonna need permission to survey the private land outside that right. If they don't have a right of way, you're gonna need them to get a right of way and permission from the landowner for you to do your work and include that buffer zone. Because if it's private land, I don't see how it could happen without the documentation in place. One person on the committee who thinks it might be city property. In
I could
which
try
case,
to pull the county assessor right now.
if it is city property, then we've got a whole different situation. But still, they would need a right of way.
Yeah.
But if it is city property, I'm sure the city is, can allow more of their property to be surveyed. That would simplify your life.
I think it must be city, not enough of anyone owning it.
County's website should say it's city property. If it doesn't come up with anyone owning it, then we're really back at square one.
Okay. Currently, it's just giving me no results found for that area.
Okay. All right, well, that little issue needs to be resolved. The amended tree. Are you referring to the unplatted land? Is that the part of your question? All of this is theoretically on unplatted land. All of this is theoretically within a projected township range and section. So it is unplatted only in the official sense. All ownership should be attributed to somebody in some system. And if the county assessor system doesn't attribute ownership to anybody, then that needs to be solved first. All of this to lead up to my main question as a result of this observation. Why is it proposed as a bore instead of a trench? I'd really like to know, because it ties into the question of ownership and right of way. So
think that needs to be resolved first, along with the ownership. It's all part and parcel of the same thing. And I thank you for your commitment to do the survey first, because it's mostly open ground, and that is the most helpful course of action for you and your client. I encourage that to always happen, and I thank you for saying that you would do it. The last thing is on page 38. One paragraph, and St. Michael's is misspelled. And just happened to notice that on the way by, saying, oh, it's the last page. And the last paragraph on that page. Sorry. I don't think we should approve anything for which it's unclear who owns what, who can give permission for you to operate where, and an explanation of why the proposed method, when it's mostly open country.
And I guess I have another comment. The Marble Road, which I see now is on the 1960 map, an aerial photograph off, coming off of the Galisteo Road. Which is the road down, that's the road Galisteo. Those homesteads are still there. The ones that are shown on the 1960 aerial photograph, I believe both of those homes are there with water towers, and so I think there's some historical information that could also be gleaned from this area that and so anyway, just it's, just from the historic side of, this was certainly outside of town on the way to Galisteo off the road. I just think it would be interesting analysis, since this little piece of land ended up being an orphan somehow at some point. And I think your land, your property, like who owns it, is interesting to find out when it was made a plat or a parcel. Okay.
So Heather, this is up to you. Would you seek to withdraw the application and fill in those blanks, or do you want us to make a motion and direct you through?
I got the first one and then resubmit it.
That seems easier for you, and I encourage that. So if you will declare that is your preference and will. Thank you. We will see you very soon with a new application.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you. Administrative matters and communication. Chair, staff. First, I need to share with you, there was another interdepartmental snafu that took place, and we have now since talked with the New Mexico DOT, the state, OAS, interdepartmental directors in and moving forward to the HDRB for signage on the Santa Fe River in between East Alameda Street and Galisteo to East Alameda Street and Palace. Well, I'm sorry, Pacific Bluff. They're looking at putting in 3
signs commemorating, women's history. I was in conversation with staff member in May of 2023. And they asked if they could come to lunch. I said, if they exceed 60 million feet, then they decided they were initially moving to 9 signs, then moved to 6 signs, then they went to 4, and then they decided on 3. So they didn't have to meet that threshold. They will be installing 1 sign off of Galisteo and East Alameda where they may impact the site on a 1876. So we are requesting monitoring to take place with a location when they install that sign. OES has been talked to by the New Mexico DOT. They do not have an archaeologist certified to work in the historic review district. So they are working on getting an archaeologist who is certified to monitor for the installation of that signage. However, staff is bringing that to you. We have been in consultation since yesterday where we wrap that up, and now they are going to take the signage, the verbiage, and all that information to the HDRB for review. Interdepartmental did realize that they needed to go through 2 historic for this application process. The New Mexico DOT didn't understand they needed to do that. So there is, Gary is working diligently to manage all this for all these interdepartmentals that they just aren't working. They're not contact. So we're working on that. And with that, would the ARC allow city staff, myself, to review all the permits that are going to be issued in the downtown, in the historic downtown archaeological review district, if they do not meet the threshold? If they got a water line going at 50 feet, a sewer main going at 40 feet, would the ARC feel confident in allowing me to review those applications prior to administering a permit, given that we can catch it before they hit the ground? It would alleviate some.
So the purpose of this would be, it's less than 60 feet. Right? It's probably not going to be unless you determine the site. Working on site doesn't matter if it's big, it's still got money.
Right.
So that's what you'd be screening for.
That's our goal.
But we can't do that. So we're not using it. Yeah.
And we don't get triggered that staff by the permitting staff. But Gary is working with interdepartment directors and senior staff to implement this so we can catch it, so we're not having what we're seeing on West San Francisco Street, what we're seeing in these other locations throughout the city, that we can provide the oversight for the cultural resources before they get in. It wouldn't take me but 5 minutes to, when they do come to the permit counter, they notify me immediately. I pull up NIMCRIS map, I do my background research as diligently as I can, and then, okay, we can move forward with that. No, they'll need to come back with information.
Yeah, that's
as simple as that.
The case of the discovery of human remains, Mr. Leonard mentioned earlier, the base of, well, for the signage at Fort Marcy, that was discovered in a hole that big, right? I mean, to put up a signboard. Right? Same thing can happen just about anywhere. Yeah, somebody needs to check to make sure you aren't working with a known site or you shouldn't be anywhere, regardless of the 60-foot requirement.
Those things in the ordinance just talk about how we get involved. I think you have great power and discretion to see how you want to get involved.
Yeah, there'll be a certain policy to where we have to change everything. Right now I'm getting pushback from permit commission, but it's something that we gotta protect that we have out there. resource. Resource. We cannot just allow it, especially if it's in tricky areas. Do that. On the design. We have some of this stuff. He has time to do it, so he's catching it up. He's back.
It might seem like a little bit of a hassle going every project here with HPV, but it's a lot less of a hassle than even one. I mean, it's a discovery like some. Yeah.
Or you stand on the side of the sample.
Yeah.
This project get put on hold. Not expensive last time.
Yeah.
It's a
His
great
project
example.
wasn't.
Oh, right.
Yeah. And they're not,
The same
We're
rule,
not
it doesn't
checking
matter
it.
the size.
Yeah.
If it's impacting them, you have to monitor. Otherwise, maybe
Just a couple of years ago, somebody talked to somebody, got some staff, somewhere approval to do something in their backyard. About 100 feet of Santa Fe Trail just evaporated, disappeared overnight. I was driving down the street one day and I could see it. It's my favorite show and tell as we're leaving town. Right there is how I was driving by. It wasn't there. So you would be in a position. Gary's leading this, and we're gonna, we have a great historic inspector who's keeping all the contractors on part, so if we can implement that, we're gonna move forward. But we wanted your approval before we move forward.
Yeah. You know that.
You have our blessings, we can't approve anything. Right,
Yeah.
right, we wanted your guidance on this, so what staff it is for. You made a good point. This poor guy doesn't do it, that's not. Straw on the camel. We need to stop stacking straws. And someday, the city needs to have full time.
Now we're shorthanded. We just had one of our case planner just left for 30 days, so.
You're wearing another hat.
Yeah, so we're just like, we're trying to pick up the caseload now. It's pretty tough, you know.
Ramona's on top.
And we know, you can either dig 1 foot, you can come across something rather, because it could have been previously disturbed. And just today, they were digging out on the road in the street over here, and no one knew what was going on. So it was like, and they dug 2 feet. So that's a lot right there.
Unfortunately, I see the always being afraid to go someplace. I see. But to the extent possible, I'm going to stop and be nosy.
Yes.
Even though that it's. You just call us and go out.
Yes, exactly.
Absolutely. Any member of the public can.
Before we're done. Please, that IG.
Yes, sir.
Because it can't be fixed, when we slow the damn thing up,
Yes, sir.
and we're gonna have in-person meetings on.
Okay, I have requested IT's assistance and we'll go back at it. So I've requested them to come to the meeting, but they cannot support us at this time for that, but I have another gem in my pocket. I'm gonna see if we can just do a couple pre-trial runs, see what we can do to get it fixed. Okay, so that will be corrected by the next hearing. And it mine as well. Mine as well. Yes.
This is just general, comment or request, I guess. Years ago, the plants used to be, code issues stuff. And that stopped it. And I think that would be very helpful if we had not only code issues, but also triggers for theology, because that would then there's a standpoint. You and I talked about that, the vanishing code stamps. And yeah, codes change a lot, but at least if they're stamped, the contractor can look at it and go, oh, okay, you know, I mean, I don't know whether it was the assumption that everybody knows the code, but I can tell you right off that a lot of contractors don't. Other contractors can't.
And then we also have a lot of contractors who are aware that will do what's necessary to avoid as well, you know. But we're gonna go back to the code stamp. Are you referring to the historic stamp that we had at one point?
No, it used to be like the code section,
Yeah.
like smoke detectors.
Chapter 15,
Yeah.
section 1, you know,
Yeah.
whatever.
Mhm.
You know, that just disappeared. Those were really helpful.
So I think where it is when you get your permit printed out now, all of your comments are on the printed sheet that you receive. And it's not directly on the plans, but you get your plan set and then you get your comments, because when we moved to InterGov and that system, everything came on a comment sheet, because
But it's still a hybrid, and that's the problem. It's still
Right.
hybrid.
And we're going into another system, which is going to be Bluebeam, where we're gonna be doing all of our reviews digitally. So that, and that may help at that point, but we are still, as far as permitting goes, in the middle. So would I. In fact, I kind of miss the blue line smell. Old ammonia.
I want to say something from an architect's point of view. When I walk in City Hall and city staff is assuming that I'm trying to get away with something,
Mhm.
I feel that.
Mhm.
And there's nothing that I hate more is being treated like a criminal before I even open my mouth. And so I would caution you greatly to treat everyone with that they only intend to do good, because I think that's what people are in general. But I have noticed in the last 4 years that has changed. And it's not the city that I have been in for 34 years, and I'm getting upset talking about it. It makes me angry that I am being treated as if I'm trying to get away with something.
Right.
Because all I'm trying to do is get the permit that I need to do the thing that's the right thing.
Right.
To get out the door for my client.
And we don't want any members of the public to feel in that way. I've worked in the private sector many years as well.
That's the way people
Right.
talk, right?
And I've worked in the private sector as many well, so I understand that, but we also as city staff have to make sure that things don't fall through the cracks.
Oh.
And we have to make sure that we do have a lot of people where you'll submit a permit for approval, and then for historic for one thing, and then when they go to submit their permit to the permit department, when we take a look at it, there's a whole nother structure on there that wasn't there before. And that can be mistakenly, but it is our job to assure that that type of thing doesn't happen. Not that we're accusing the public of doing that, but we need to, as staff, make sure that that doesn't happen.
Of course, and you don't have to treat people like criminals, you have to treat them like, oh, you missed this.
Right,
Right,
absolutely.
oh, you made a mistake.
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
Not, oh, you're trying to get away with something and
Right.
I'm going to treat you that.
Right,
And that's
and
what I'm
everybody
saying.
should be treated
Yeah.
fair and equally down the line.
And
Yeah.
I know that, you know, I'm sure it comes, across the other direction, and I apologize for that too.
No, I don't,
Yeah, we get it.
yeah,
We get the whole
Yeah.
situation where it's like, we're only pushing the code. And sometimes we have individuals that are like, what code? You can do this, you can do that. So wait a minute. Let's review it first. Let's go over the whole situation and we'll let you know what we need oversight. And the inconsistency and being on the same page with the divisions, we need to know that. Just issues like retaining walls, stuff like that,
Because you're in an educational situation. most of
Yes,
the time.
exactly. We're
And that's what my role is too, is I'm educating all the time.
Yeah.
And you are too. but-
Exactly, and that's what we're trying to push, because I had an issue today of a retaining wall. I look at it as the code, how it reads. So I go to current planning and I ask them, you guys review these, right? And they're, yes, okay, so explain to me, this is how I read it. Okay, but how do you guys review it? How do you approve it? They told me a totally different story than what's on the code. So I'm only pushing for our side as how I read it in the code. And I'm telling that individual, but when they go somewhere else, that's a totally different story. So we're not consistent in the codes. And it's tough that, and it's, we have to learn how to work together. We have to have, how do you call it, cross-training. We need that for everybody in the division. We may have an issue, just, inspections might not know about it. They approve it, then we have an issue. Stuff like that. That's the reason why I'm sending my individuals to go get certified in plan reviews.
and cross-training takes time, which takes away from our applicants and getting their stuff. So it's, we do try our best.
I know that everybody's doing that.
Yeah.
I think, it just can't be emphasized enough how much everything's broken.
Agreed.
We'll figure out how to put that together.
Exactly.
Sure, that way. I understand, remember Bechtel's concern, when you go to a site, you see the building, they tell you 59 feet, you know.
Somebody somewhere knows what the limit is.
Somebody
Yeah.
somewhere knows 59 feet is just 1 foot from 60. And at that point, it's like, okay, now you're not respecting us as staff or the code or the ordinance or the archaeology.
You say, well, can I see your tape measure?
Yeah.
Oh, no, we measured it. We used a roller, yeah.
And we're like, okay, sir.
You don't- it's on. It's
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's what we do with. Oh, it's only 20 feet, you measure it's 120.
So we just have to do our best to do our due diligence and treat people respectfully, and that's our goal.
Exactly. And within this
And if
next,
something other different method, and English, pull out your metric tape.
yeah, exactly. And within this next month, my division, we're gonna be out 3. So,
And I'm
that's,
gonna be on time.
yeah, she's leaving. We had another individual who's transferring to a different division, so that only leaves us with 3, pretty much, yeah. So we're on thin ice.
That's more straws.
Yeah. You're gonna have a bill.
You asked to do this
Yeah.
I want to add something to the administrative matters prior to going into what's on the agenda. So, as you know, last hearing was Melissa's last date for stenographer. We had Xavier fill in for swearing in. as we learned, the attorneys are unable to swear in unless they, as of June 2023, they need an additional notaries to swear in. So, I will be working on getting my notary for this board to swear in. That is on my to-do list during my leave. And, yes, ma'am. And, so it'll be intermittent. I'll be here but out. And what we're gonna do is I am going to take the meeting minutes off of our Zoom and have them transcribed digitally for you for this meeting. And I'm hoping maybe the meeting after that, we will have somebody back on that will be doing meeting minutes. Another stenographer. It's a dying profession, as we spoke of. And so we have been working diligently with the clerk's office to try to figure out what we're going to be doing for minutes. Right now, it's just the Meetings Act is basically just to take your vote. And I know that this board likes more in-depth meetings, so I'm going to try to get these transcribed for this hearing, and then I'm hoping my next hearing will have a person to do the minutes in the background. So I am definitely trying to get you more long burst minutes. So I'll sit with Paul and Gary and see if there's any, discrepancies between through the minutes that we get. So I'm going to try to get them on Zoom or see if I get them off YouTube or.
Guilty about talking about minutes, but lately I'm online. In a situation where we want to talk about something. Always. Yeah. Summarize would be another. But themes,
Melissa.
we're all going to.
Yes.
My city either.
Okay, so what is required by the Meetings Act is a lot less than what Melissa provided. So it's just basically your action. So what I was hoping is that I could take what has been transcribed by AI and we can try to reduce it as much as possible with working in Paul and Gary. But I don't want to miss anything that is important or highly important. So maybe, it's just going to be trial by error for our next hearing.
The motions are clearly stated.
Right.
They were tiers.
Right.
And we have the YouTube archive.
Yes, it's live.
So that does seem.
Is that going to be sufficient for you? I do not need to then provide all the entire.
Easy on yourself.
Okay, then I will.
Because if we can access that,
We can
knock
see all the
ourselves out with
details.
detail, great.
Okay.
And if the record just needs to say case number,
Mhm.
there was discussion, there were corrections, motion, accept with corrections, motion passed, that's fine.
Okay, perfect. And then I will add the link, the YouTube link.
I mean, if
For-
that satisfies the Meetings Act.
It does. Yeah, that is what it's gonna be. Thank you, sir. Chair and members. Right.
No, those you people, not present the full length of everything.
And then with the IT corrections, I apologize, Member Tricia, and then with the ID corrections to the feedback, your YouTube will be easier to listen to. Member Trees.
Okay, given that, people are short-staffed, I assume that because we didn't get anything for this meeting on last Friday, that, well, maybe we're not, maybe I misunderstood, I had, can we at least get an email that says, no, the meeting is on for block day, and we will get you your packet on block day?
Yeah,
Just because the older I get, the more busy my brain gets, it's harder for me to keep track of stuff. And I would also like to know, if we're gonna get 1,000 pages or 500 pages, that would be helpful too, because I could block out some time. Because I'm still working full time.
okay.
And I had a doctor's appointment this week in Albuquerque. So it's helpful for me to be able to plan.
And Member Trees, that was my failure to get you the packets out on Friday digitally. We did do them, the paper packets, but I am preparing for my leave, and that was my fault. So, and I was out earlier in the week, so I called Paul and I said, oh, I didn't send out the ARC packets, can you please help? So that absolutely was my lack of.
Oh, that's right, you didn't get your
And
paper packet.
when it doesn't get sent out until like Friday at 5 o'clock, and I can't get a hold of anybody, I don't know what to do.
Right, and then, so we'll provide you with, our cell phone information, and the packets did go out later in the day. There was, it was, I believe, a super large packet in the mail room, because we requested the color. It's taking her a lot longer to do the packet, and we were also, short a packet from one of our applicants. So we was like waiting for them to get in, and that's why they didn't go out until later in the day. But you will get them that day. It was just like Chair F also called me and said, is my packet coming? And so, but I will be more diligent in getting your packets to you in a timely manner.
Even if we got like just a text. or
Courtesy
an
email.
At 4 o'clock saying, the packet is on the way, you'll get it before the end of the day. Rather than wait until 5 o'clock and I don't have it, nobody's gonna be back until 5.
Yeah, I was having Heather deliver after hours. She was the only one available.
We were waiting for an applicant to provide something, so we would complete the package.
Yes,
Deadline.
right.
That was for the CD.
Yeah.
That was for Karen Williams' CD for the awards. So we didn't want to submit it without getting the CD from her. But see, she sent it to us when she got out of the field. So then so it's like situation. It's like,
But I at least didn't really look at her CV until the day of the award.
none of us even saw it because as soon as it went to the mailroom and then presented, so.
And this is the first time I saw CV with such an honor.
We thought it might be
It's good information.
good information for you.
What? It seems like the packet goes when it goes. If something's not there, it's
It
not
gets
there.
get pulled.
And fill in the blanks later. Because often the time I have available is Friday night, Saturday and Sunday. And I can't touch it again until Thursday afternoon. So if I don't have it,
You can't review it.
and you already know I can't deal with reading it.
Yes.
said, if you got it out digital and told people who are expecting paper and expecting paper, that at least provides an opportunity to get started. And even I, the trouble there, would get started if necessary on training. You know, I don't want to make life difficult.
We will ensure that your packets get out and you know.
Would you prefer digital?
No. I was saying all that, I'm willing to make the sacrifice and start by looking at digital if for some reason paper is getting held up.
Okay.
What I.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe I See, his eyes work normal. I need on the screen. I'm dumb.
Yeah. Okay. So the joining date will.
One further item before you start.
I just wanted to,
There's a lot of people there.
I'm looking for it. Where in the sequence of battle I left out punchline. Which is and fire.
And I blew it. No, what you shared was heartfelt and it was awesome. And the two archaeologists were, oh my gosh. And you know, Ken's so humble and she just, it was just beautiful all the way around. It was really nice.
Back me up and talk about things I didn't know. That's not really. So
It was packed.
Okay. One.
Item 1.
Chair, city staff is working currently to get the ARC members a link, an active link where they can address comments in the code rewrite that we're working on your spare time. We're working on that to get that situated through IT. Right. So once, yes, so you'll have access to it. Staff will review it and add their comments, as well as yourselves, and we can go through it as we are now. And I can go in after our meetings and implement it in the PDF. That will be shared.
Is that going to fly past city attorney? The rules about.
So this will be on your personal time, and it won't be an active forum, because nobody will be communicating together. We'll just be making our comments to line by line.
So I see a document, I can make a copy.
Yes.
Can she see the copy?
Yes.
It's not an official act to review this. Under, aren't there, is it?
We'll confer with the attorney's office.
Yeah, as long as each of us reviewing this in our own capacity does not consider as an official act of the committee, then throw the whole idea of the rolling forum out the window, and we can interact all day. But otherwise,
seems like we're gonna have to point that down so that iterative and make it common. But it doesn't propagate to the point where everybody see it, so some impression. That, okay, everybody see it.
We will confer with our
I
city attorney.
know from personal experience on the other side of this, where some company, United States, is doing something to the ordinance. Editing what's there, changing what's there. Here, attached to an email, someone sees planning. And I can access it, I can comment on it, I can see everybody else's comments, I can comment. And that's all well and good, and then the period of time goes away. And we have a meeting at which I understand we're going to talk about the comments. Done. We don't get to see them. And I can't go back and look at the document. It's been no longer authorized to see it. This is madness. We have to be able to see the history of the profession. We have to see conversation. So that's going to be my. I have to take the law because I can't remember it. And can't go back and look at it. So that doesn't work the way they're doing it, however it is that they're doing it. It's not Google Docs, it's something. Heather's taking she's moving forward on this, she just has to the clarity on move visions. So we'll be in contact with her and she'll know better next day or something. So. March. And the next thing, blank door is wide open. So, order the now person walked up. 8 pages. You need to do this. Like, somebody has to have experience. And that person the whole thing is for me not working.
I completely forgot she was.
Well, I'd like to follow up on both. With comment there, if we are planning to use something like the box, edit this, or comment on remote, what are we going to do now tonight? We just move on, wait until that process is in place? You want to try and cover some ground? I'm open, but I'm not in charge. I'm just the guy or the gal. I have a few, but it doesn't mean I can't wait and put them in the document.
It'd be best that if you might want to talk about it, that way you guys are on the same page, that if you comment on the outside, then you won't get into that trouble. It's better that you're in a quorum now, so.
So with that in mind,
Vincent, on May 20th at 5 p.m. the same time. Sidebar.
Go, as written.
Yes, we, sent that as written, and
You sent it to us after you sent it.
yes, we didn't have the time to send it before you to comment. I wanted to get it to you on Friday, so you had the weekend to review it, but we weren't able to do that. We wrapped it up on Monday, and got it to Ann Pearson
In time, in her deadline.
and we had some comments and concerns, and so there's gonna be some interesting. No, everyone. Last week. Probably. Think on that. Some of the money cap that they want to put on. Oh yeah, this is absolutely. They threw that in there. Those, if you ever did, well, they were trying to have a full view too, right? Saying that there's no numbers live. On Juan DeMarco that you're talking about. But Germain is not a French proper name. It's a German derived. It's not happening. Spell check.
They need to send it back for further comment or take in our comments and then go for signature. And then when it goes to signature, it'll be the city attorney and the city manager to sign off.
The city attorney has to say, yes, this document, acceptable thing, the manager to sign on behalf of, right? And then the manager has to step forward. Day early.
Is the archaeologist that's doing the reporting for the Georgia Peak Museum, are they a city certified archaeologist?
Yeah.
They can work in the downtown.
And the archaeologist helped me because I was, familiar with your side of the deal. That their proposal seemed particularly technologically heavy. And in my comments, I said, what does this mean if something follows up? I know what you're laying out. Your footings, if they're off, then your building starts creaking. with this stuff stop. Well, any of that made sense. I mean, it seems really cool, but what if it doesn't work? The Pierce fellow knows more about that than I do, but I can tell you firsthand, it never works. There's always a problem. And you have to have a quality control group to make sure that what you did was done correctly. This is after there's supposed to be the front loading stuff. The quality assurance loop. When you put the plan on paper. We're gonna do the right thing. And then we're gonna check to make sure we did it correctly. And this is like, oh, we're gonna hit it with technology, by God, it's gonna be great. Bullshit. You're referencing the ground penetrating radar. Not just like everything, all. I like there was. I can't remember. But so, to make it very broad and somewhat shaky statement, those technologies tend not to work as well in fully disturbed urban areas as they do out in undisturbed.
They don't work very well in
Yeah,
buildings. I was
right.
trying to use, a guy that was doing LiDAR in the building. I was like, I can't use them. And
Even your little laser that measures the distance from wall to wall. Because I don't trust them. And often tape is right. And you really do that.
Everything should be documented with paper and pencil, and then they move to the digital eye.
Yeah, that's not their style. They're taking account of that. They invested a lot in going paperless. But yeah, some of the sort of higher end, what do you call it, non-destructive technology they're trying to use doesn't perform well in these situations. And, you know, and they're trying to already cut the cost down to 7,000, which is really, how much of that are you spending on the side of technology that they're really showing?
Well, in general, their methodology is based on a large scale survey, not on an urban archaeological excavation. So they're using a cookie cutter plan that they did for something else, and they're coming here to downtown Santa Fe and trying to employ it. Our concern is with the entire HBTP, because from a theoretical perspective and to the methodology, it doesn't contribute to what's already been established by all the archaeologists and all the work that's been done. They're not taking into consideration all of it. They're trying to rewrite what's something that's unknown for like a survey that's out in La Hacienda. But we know that's here. The testing report shows you exactly the location and everything here. So what information are you gonna use knowing exact locations of what sites or features are here and bring that to life? So they didn't write anything about that. It said we're gonna use this high-end equipment to address all these germane questions about that we already know about. We already know that these components that are here. So gosh, this has just been a really tough project, all in general.
Last thing on the technology, promise I'll shut up. You're uncomfortable. Correlate. You put test trenches in. Grab, which we don't sensitive stuff on. All those trenches distort everything that's in the trench, below the trench, next to the trench. So in effect, you put in a backfill trench and you learn something, you drag all this technology around, you're going to see mud. Maybe you'll see a bunch of anomalies that will prompt them to search carefully. But the scary part is they won't see anything except the trench. And they'll say, oh, well, there's nothing else here. Well, two business, each of 5 rooms. You're not gonna win. It's simple. Put a hole in the ground, it's space. What are we doing? Can we take some comments on the proposed changes in code, or do you want to? Not do that? I feel like even the, 10 or 12 things I've flagged could go on.
I was gonna say, mine are conceptual and philosophical, all my questions are philosophical. Like, why is it like that? Why is it like that?
Sure. May I ask, members, if you send me a list of your comments and I'll implement them onto the document, and then we'll share that document for all the members. So you'll see your comments in there.
I like that.
That's
That avoid the forum problem. We're not talking to each other. We're talking one-on-one to you.
Send me all your comments, I'll implement them into the report, and then I'll send that out for your review.
And we can talk about it.
Yes.
Because we can't address philosophy in that part.
And will you
know
CC
what your
me?
question is.
Yes,
So that
I'll
way,
CC you in there.
or Gary?
Yeah,
So
you'll
that
be
way
in there.
there be, more than one, just in case you don't get the email.
Sure.
Good. We can do that. Like that. Then during that next meeting, you give us next little chunk, and we'll take it home and come back. Provide you comment on that piece over the following month. Keep that.
And there'll be a record of your comments in that way.
What was your comment?
Oh, if you could CC, staff, Gary and myself, when you email Paul?
So it's floating out in one inbox.
Yes.
Piece, the word piece. What piece of it does? They
Well-
run through.
We'll work on sections 14-2 also.
That's probably the price that you gave us
Correct.
already.
Yeah, it's in the,
We,
Yes.
yes. We'll focus on 40, and then we'll go to 14-3, after.
yeah, that's great. I mean, I did. Have that here. Want to do that here. So, perfect.
And then I'll put that right into the, update.
And thank God, Derek, because he actually remembers what we talked about with Zach all those years ago. I don't know, I remember that. Maybe it's been two. Oh, was that in line? Oh.
I will work on that, Brenda, but yes, I know. For me as well, especially.
Glad it's not on.
Oh, real quick, because I don't have the calendar. What's the date for the next meeting?
Let me get that. I have my calendar over here in front of me.
June 27th. I'm sorry, June 27th.
June 27th.
Maybe a no-show.
Okay, just let us know. And then, and still, if you'll send along your comments and we'll read them for you on your behalf.
It'll be the fourth Thursday of June. Is the 20, so I'm sorry, fourth Thursday of June is the 27th. And you'll be telling me.
A Monday? No,
No,
Sunday.
Saturday.
I don't have my calendar.
Yeah, June first Saturday.
Next week, the 27th, June, third, fourth. Boy.
I have to pull up my calendar. I can't.
The reason I'm asking is I thought we had moved this to third Thursday. We moved it to fourth Thursday? Yes, since January. The third.
Planning Commission is why we, and they meet the,
Except for Thanksgiving.
It's the fourth Thursday. Well, then, my friends, remember that because. You know, I never mentioned it, because even though with the previous meeting, I was under the impression Thursday, and I found myself like a few days before, like, where's my packet? Where's my packet? And then I finally realized the meeting was still a week or 4 more away. But yeah, I guess I got the same thought water. Third. Well, anyway. I think that I would like to just preemptively make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed.
all right,
Thank you. Oh, really?
we're still live.
I wasn't.